Hi, everybody. Wow, I was just like, wow, 11:01. Here we are back after, I guess it's a 3 week hiatus. Is that right, Sue?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, Sue's been off having adventures, and I've been taking the time to continue to do work. I stayed home the last couple of Wednesdays, home meaning out at my winter retreat, and worked on my pre-recorded level one tarot series, which is going to be so awesome. I'm launching that at the end of March. It's really coming along. It's an 8 module series with all kinds of information like video components and quizzes and lots of learning materials. So I'm really excited to be sharing more about that in the next two or
Amazing.
3 weeks as it's ready to launch. So many people, like I'm just finishing my last level one tarot series, and this will be the last time that I'm teaching it kind of virtually live. Um, I'll be still doing level two virtually live, which is basically the class where we do readings together and we do group reading, but you kind of need
Hmm.
the basics, the foundational stuff. And it's really extensive, the course that I've curated along with my volume one and two workbooks. So I'm excited. I'm excited that people can just access that at any time and go at their own pace because a lot of
Hmm.
times to be able to commit to doing a 6 week series and showing up and doing, I assign lots of homework. There's a lot of self-study and exercises and stuff, and it's hard for people to sort of stay on track with that.
Hmm.
So this is going to be an opportunity for people to go at their own pace, but there will be a real incentive to complete the program because when you complete the program, you'll get a certification, like an actual certificate. I'll be marking all your quiz material, and then you are able to access the virtual level two series once you complete the level one. So anyway, just a little plug about that, and that's what I've been filling my days with when I'm not doing readings. So welcome back, Sue.
Thank you.
Lovely to see you, dear. I'm
Yes,
so
you too.
excited that we're back in the swing here, and we've already
Hmm.
got some questions coming up. Let's take our first question.
Yeah, let's jump in then. Solistic Sparkle Laura.
Wow.
Woohoo! I hope I can catch this live. My question. Okay, which will stabilize humanity best? Free
Hmm.
energy
Mm,
or freeing of true historic information?
mm. I'm
Okay, so
going
then she
like,
says, example, Elohim or Tartaria?
yeah,
So great
right.
question, actually. That's
It's
good.
such a good question, and
Hmm.
I really love, in a way, which would be better. I'm hearing, well, that's nice that there's those two that you've already identified,
Hmm.
two complementary pieces,
Ah,
right? So it's like maybe not necessarily an either or, but a both. And I wonder how those two complementary pieces could work together, is what I'm hearing. So let's have a look,
hmm.
see what our guides want us to be aware of regarding this question today. So I'm just gonna, whoop, there we go. So here's us.
Right.
Ah, the star, the star. Um, this is really also, there's something I'm hearing a third thing. So there's something about understanding our intergalactic origins, our
Hmm.
star ancestry, and that gets into Tataria and the Elohim and those pieces. As I was saying to Sue just before we came on, it's sort of like the beginning of, it's like being in a big dark room and you start by opening one little window, a little up high window. That's a pretty high up window, right? It's like a little curtains get open, and it's like a little bit of light gets in, and then there's like some more big curtains over here and some more over here. And so, what I'm being
Right.
shown is that we are beautifully being guided. There isn't necessarily a right path
Hmm.
to activating ourselves. What you guide yourself with, yeah, discernment is interesting. Um,
Hmm.
it's very interesting because what we're being shown here, the King of Swords, is you're going for something that is intellectually, when I say going for, I mean you're
Yep.
navigating towards information. So in this case, information regarding free energy, how to bring that more into our world, how to promote that, how to get it, involved in free energy programs and projects and
Mm-hmm.
technology and how to invest in that.
Mm-hmm.
There's also on the other side exploring, like I want to say just refreshing and expanding on history. It's not really about this is right and that's wrong. The more we expand and open the possibilities, I think even the way that a lot of the information has come through in the last 30 years that I've been exploring what I would call alternative history, is even in those communities and truth or realities and all that kind of stuff, there's been a lot of refreshing updates in information as more science
Mm-hmm.
comes through, as more new insights come through, as more channeled information comes through. It's not a one, like, this is the right answer, that's the wrong answer, this is the truth, that's not true. It's the emerging truth in the kind of little baby steps that we are ready for it. And how you navigate through that is you go to stuff that, first of all, is interesting to you. Your curiosity is piqued. You're like, ooh, I like the sound of that. I heard that somebody described it, and my mind just got all excited and started asking a bunch of questions. That's the one half of it. And
Oh,
the other half of it, the hanging man in the past, the other half of it is how does it make you feel when you hear the information? If it makes you feel like, wow, I had a feeling about this and now, like basically the deciding factor is does it open up a lot more questions for you and does it make you feel excited and hopeful about the future? Or does it make you mad?
right.
If it makes you
Right. Like it's
mad,
like they've been keeping it from us, and then it's kind of a victim perspective, and
or
they've
or
done this to
just
us,
or
maybe,
just that you're like now you're like rabidly seeking the actual truth. I don't know if that's true or not. Like the more you can stay, if it makes you feel like wow, that's an amazing thing to consider, and I'll add that
Mhm.
to my pile of growing information. I just have a quick little story to share about this. Six of Pentacles in the center, reciprocity, sharing, growing our data bank together, sharing in terms of different types of alternative energy, frequency technologies and practical applications. So again, everything in like a kind of balance. You see that little scales there. Reciprocity, gifting, sharing.
Mhm.
Years ago when I first really started exploring, and I was saying to Sue before we came on, oh man, yeah, I was looking at Tataria and Elohim like seriously 35 years ago. I was reading stuff on that. And so now I'm kind of just a
Yeah.
little bit yawning. Not really, but I'm kind of like, well, it's not that it's not true or that I don't believe any of it. What I believe is that information is still evolving into our perception, and we don't have all of it yet.
I
And if you just go on one, like, that's my narrative. Like, I used to be like, okay, I just want to know everything about that. But then I would get to the end of that, whatever that was, and I'd be like, okay, now I've lost the plot somehow. I forgot. Like I just it does the more into it I got, the less sense it made. And then I'd be like, okay, obviously it's not the right thing. I got to find this thing, you know? And then I'd go over here and I'd explore that to the
It
nth
reminds
degree.
me of the rabbit holes we've been going down
Yeah,
for
and then I'd get to
the
the
endless
kind of as
rabbit
far as I
hole.
could in that. You'll
Right.
find this
Yep.
if you watch Gaia TV, for example. You get like, oh yeah, it's so good, and then you get down there,
Yep.
and then you're like, wait a minute, it's all just merging with everything else now. I don't even discern it anymore.
Yep.
So what I realized, and then I was like, okay, I'm going to start, keeping all of this research, bodies of research, going down all these rabbit holes. I'm going to gather, and eventually the big story will emerge, and I'll
Yeah.
know the truth. So I did that for about 20 plus years, and now I'm like, oh, the truth the truth is still evolving. The truth is still emerging. I'll just get so that I know something. and it'll grow into something beyond what I used to know or think I knew. So now
Right.
what I like to do is really keep a wide curiosity going, like gathering from all different sources. And you'll start to go, okay, I don't really get the big picture completely, but I'm starting to get a sense, just like we did when we put together the pieces as truthers and we were like,
Uh-huh.
okay, if there's lies over here and there's lies over here and there's lies over here and there's lies over here, guess what? It's all a little bit funky fake, right? And so that's it's also the same with gathering perspective. I
Uh-huh.
just see it like a fractaling beautiful big crystal,
Uh-huh.
gathering perspective, sharing, and if it feels like it's giving you a sense of like real purpose. That was one of the biggest things that I received as a gift when I started doing this work and study, is that I'd be like, I knew it. I knew it wasn't this old fashioned narrative of what we were fed in school. I knew as I would sit in
Uh-huh.
those classes in
Mm-hmm.
history and, geography, I mean, some of it I liked, but then when I got into university and I was sitting in psychology classes, I was like, this is so not the full story. This is just one kind of distorted angle of truth.
Right.
So keep gathering is the
You're kind of in
message.
a tunnel then, and then you've trapped yourself. If that's the truth, then there can't be any gray then. It's like the mind wants black and white, and yet,
Oh.
just to satisfy it in the moment, but it keeps us chasing. So
Hmm.
Laura,
Hmm.
she's like, just call me Laura, thank you. And she says, so it's more about us being in the receiving frequency.
Yeah,
I
love
like the
that.
way
I
you
love
say
that.
that actually. Yeah, it's almost like the feminine, like being in the receptive.
The other piece that's going to feel really good is look at this because it's like sharing information. So, first of all, one of the things you can be mad about is like, why didn't we know this sooner?
Uh-huh. Yep, yep.
Well, you know, there's something about being kept in the dark, the hanging man, like not knowing, having the information kept from us. In a way, you could also say that it is, we've been suspended in order to create, I want to say they're saying like the cranial space, the energetic space to absorb a lot of this. It's been held like we were evolving spiritually through all that darkness, through the dark ages, right? The Kali Yuga
Mm-hmm.
cycle, in that's what we're just
Mm-hmm.
coming out of now.
Mm-hmm.
5, 6, 7, 8,000 years of the dark time.
Just a
And
just a few.
so, in that time, though, it wasn't just darkness with no purpose. It's kind of like carving out the soul, the heart, the psyche, expanding into the openness, the emptiness, ready. And now it's like, yeah, it's even almost they're saying it's sort of like the dark composting soil, and in the spring you plant. And then maybe some of those seeds are going to grow into something and some won't, but we don't need to worry about that. The other piece is that if we can say, what am I going to do with this information? Like, how
Mm-hmm.
does it inform my actual life, my physical 3D life and
Yes, not
4D?
for the information just to appease or because I'm trying to control it, but you've said that a lot before too. It was like, so you're going to call the extraterrestrials or whatever, like the aliens, but then what do you want with them?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? For just be like, hey, let's have a cup of tea. I'll show you around. Like what do you
Let's just
want?
sit down and have a chat. It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
yeah, and that's a little bit of that putting any of these stories up on a pedestal. It's like there's so many of them. A lot of these are ancient texts, they're ancient stories, mythologies, um, cultural histories, oral
Mhm.
histories, and there's there's a lot of them and they're all over the world. And what you're starting to do as you study them is go, oh, something's happening here. And,
Hmm.
I mean, I got pretty hung up for a lot of years on the whole, yeah, like the ancient aliens,
Hmm.
Anunnaki,
Uh-huh.
Elohim, all of those
Enlil,
pieces.
and then yeah,
Yeah. And
yeah.
it's not that I don't believe there's
Mhm.
truth in those stories. However, I do feel like they've kind of got blown out of proportion and become a bit of the sort of, I don't want to say like the Hollywood junk food type of material that
Yeah.
it just keeps recycling
Yeah.
over generations and decades. And it's pretty sort of controversial material, right? But if you
Hmm.
go a little deeper into all of these things,
Hmm.
like if you go back further and look at some of the, what are the ancient mythologies and traditions that these storylines are associated with? Like,
Right, right.
Enki and Enlil and the
Mhm.
Sumerians and the
Right.
Babylonians, and then you go back into, were they coming from the Atlanteans and migrating and going to these different parts, different regions? And then is this pre-Atlantis? Are we looking at Lemuria? There's we
Right.
go further and further.
It's massive.
It's really, really massive.
And
And
are
yet,
we right? And are we some of those aliens that are coming back?
well,
Is
it's,
there
it's,
aspects of us?
there's a little bit of like, I want to say the dumbed down narrative started way back then. Like,
Right.
it's been this, let's simplify it and sort of nullify some of the spiritual potency and bring it more into something that can be controlled. So
I
it's not
see.
that I don't believe any truth in any of those things. It's that the at what is at the core of a lot of those beliefs
Yep.
is that humanity is victimized and that we are
Uh-huh.
hybridized species.
Yep.
We've been, we never have been really functionally very whole or,
Yeah.
enlightened or, that we're
Right, as if we can't do it without them, and it keeps us in the victim narrative. So it's been used
a
in
little
another way
bit.
because
I
it's just
mean,
sort of the headline, you know?
I feel like there's truth to it, but it's sort of like if you were to, let's say, tell the whole humanity's history from one
Hmm.
from one mytho or one story line
Hmm.
from one culture in one part of the world. And
Right.
then that becomes the narrative that apparently this is the whole story and it's the
Right.
only story.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
it's like, I truly believe that we are a divine source species and that these layers of information, I believe there's truth in all of them. I believe many of them have actually happened in some sort of historical timeline, but they're small, big, little mini parts of the big story. They're
Right.
not the story. And the more we get like sort of sidetracked and getting down into those streams, like I said, what I noticed is I would get so far into those stories and then I'd be like, wait a minute, I lost myself back there somewhere. I don't even know what it is I'm looking for anymore. I'm just getting more and more
Hmm.
data
Yep.
and confirmation. Yeah, this happened. Yeah, this happened. And then it's kind of like, but why? And how does it relate to our evolution now?
Right. Right.
It's
Makes
like,
sense. Yeah. How is it going to help us move forward? And
mm-hmm,
yeah, yeah. And that's looking at the massive information now. Similarly, right?
mm-hmm,
So much and
yeah.
all the rabbit holes.
So
Are you
yeah,
going to
and
get
the
okay?
final thing I want to say here is
Hmm.
like this is all very much both the technology and the narratives to some extent have been concocted as part of what we would call the patriarchal dominant model of power dominance and
Uh-huh.
I want to say yeah, creating sort of like a false overlay on top of
Mhm.
the planet for about the last 10,000 years or so. So,
Holding the system in place with these belief systems. That's so interesting.
yeah,
It's like picking a piece of the Bible, maybe, or like picking a piece of anything that. Like, where's the context?
And
How
then
is it relevant?
sort of in a way the whole storyline around technology and energy, it's I always have seen, I feel like I'm trying to remember, was it Graham Hancock talked about this a long time ago in one of his books, but I've always seen that these technologies, all of them, all of the physical technologies, all of Nikola Tesla's work and the free energy stuff and
Mhm.
everything, med beds and you name it, all of that stuff, it's like it's temporary stuff. It's like training wheels on the bicycle. It's there to get us like going, oh yeah, right. But if we don't throw all our lot in that and go, oh, great machines,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like
Ready for the fix. Bring it on. When are they
right.
coming? When? Yeah.
It's we can actually, we have the power. We'll learn as we start to relax and heal our trauma and
Mhm.
experiment a little and color outside all these lines and get more and more curious and gather more information. We're going to learn that we actually start needing those props less and less. We need the storylines less and less. We actually remember things. We remember, like, when you do like hypnotherapy, like what you're doing, people can
Mhm.
literally have the whole narrative inside of them.
And they're healing themselves just by
And
seeing what's there. They are the magic, and it's like, wow. And it's like learning to trust ourselves. And I think a lot of this has been focused on the outside. When's the fix going to come? And it's like, we have it. We totally have it. And I'd rather go to you in a way, and you tell me, you know what I mean? You tap
that's
in
the
because
old
I trust
that's
you,
the
not
old way.
me. Like, why
Yeah,
can't
that's
you
the old
trust
way.
me?
So does
So
that
how do
mean that
you
I'm not poo-pooing any of this stuff? I'm not saying don't get into the Elohim and the Tartaria. Don't do alternative history research. I still do it all the time. I
right?
love it.
I
It
think
stimulates,
interesting. Yeah.
it allows me to expand more and more into open perspective, and it has allowed me to become this expansive visionary perceptor kind of
Amazing.
channeler
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
behalf of lots of people. But everyone can do this, and everyone can do this.
Yeah. That's
Same with
good. Yep.
working with these technologies. They will give us, we'll start to feel. Have you ever gone for like a treatment or something, and
Mhm.
you could feel your body responding to it and interacting with it and almost communicating with the treatment, and you'd be like, literally you could take that, and your body was saying, yeah, I'll remember how to do this and I'll just keep doing this
Uh-huh.
now. And if I
Mhm.
if I tell my mind, remember what that felt like, my body can go back and tap in and do that without the machine anymore. So
Yeah.
that
The
even
machine
the
pop up,
free
remember, but
energy,
then it's us. That's free
it's
energy.
free energy, but we will probably need the machines in the beginning. That's okay. It's
It's like
but
Dumbo needed the feather to fly.
oh, Sue, that is so
Right?
cute.
It's so true though, right? And you're like, what? Where's the
Oh my
feather?
gosh.
Yeah, right?
Oh my gosh, Sue, I'm channeling. You're going to write a book about that. Dumbo's feather and
Ah,
how we can be stimulated to
right.
remember what we're capable of by interacting in the external first.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Makes a ton of sense because that's what we've been accustomed to. So Candice has a good question here. She
Yep.
says, my daughter suffers PTSD since lockdowns. Anything I can do? Asking the universe for help for her.
Oh,
There are
yes,
many, I'm
yes, yes.
sure,
Okay,
like,
so I'm in this quandary right now, and
mm,
maybe you all can help me because I'm really struggling between, and I know I don't have to choose one or the other, but I really love going down this path with perspective,
mhm,
education,
mhm, mhm,
helping people learn how to listen to their intuition, work with their own guides,
mhm,
discover all of these alternative versions of reality and get curious and feel really inspired by that.
mhm, mhm.
Opening the windows or the curtains in that big room, like I was saying.
Yeah.
On the other side of the coin, I feel so committed to supporting people doing personal trauma healing,
Uh-huh.
ancestral
Mm-hmm.
healing, grief work.
Mm-hmm.
Like, not just because it's a cool thing to do, in fact, because it's the only thing to do. It is
Mm-hmm.
like, it's
Mm-hmm.
almost like the other side of that balance is it's the thing that is the next big thing for all of us to do. So when you're talking about PTSD,
Yeah.
and I just want to look up here to some of the other questions. We're seeing unprecedented amounts of I want to say, autism,
Oh my God.
PTSD, anxiety in youth, mental health issues, uh, irritable bowel syndrome,
Mm-hmm.
chronic
Mm-hmm.
fatigue, autoimmune disorders. So all of it is connected to not, it's not about, oh, that terrible bad trauma from the past. How do we get rid of
Everything.
that? It's actually, we're on the brink of the biggest healing wave ever.
Oh
And
God.
I want to say it's not just going to be our lifetime. This is going to go on for generations. There's going to be healing, and working with healing trauma is going to be the big, you know, it's not just something we do so
Yeah.
we can get back to the old paradigm or get back to living simple and easy and forget about all this.
Right.
It's really the thing that allows us every time we do it, every time we go a little deeper, heal a little more, trust a little more, expand a little more into possibility.
Right.
We are literally evolving together.
Wow.
And so my quandary is like, how do I bring that awareness that I have and make that accessible for people? Because I've started in the last couple of years, I think I talked about this, well, maybe not with you and this audience, but
Mm-hmm.
um, I did a full moon with Tanya and Norma,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and we were talking about therapy, counselors, grief, trauma healing work, and again, not just that it's something we want to hurry up and get cross off the list, but
Mm-hmm.
that it's the most impactful, empowering,
Mm-hmm.
progressive, evolutionary, progressive stuff that we can be focusing on.
Absolutely, because we're just going to continue to react and perpetuate the old system if it's within. So, if you look at it, I'm wondering too, like, are you doing past life regressions? Are you doing EMDR? I know that's been super helpful for me. There's been all kinds of, unlocking. I met a woman who was like, she's like, I was like locked, PTSD locked. And now she does peyote and ayahuasca journeys with people to support them in their journey. That's what helped her. And so I think everybody has a different way of where they are. Yeah, it's interesting, but there's lots of things out there. So do you have any
There,
recommendations for this
yeah,
self-daughter, especially the younger people? Like,
yeah, definitely.
mm-hmm,
Um, so PTSD,
mm-hmm,
again, trauma work, therapeutic trauma healing work. So I'm going to just tell you the person that I see is almost like globally the number one expert at this juncture is a man named Thomas Hubel.
okay.
I will put a link below.
Oh, amazing.
It's his program, his website, I think, is called Mystic Cafe. He does all kinds of online workshops. There's all kinds of free stuff that he does. So
Okay.
that trauma healing work, and then getting a trauma healing therapeutic counselor
Mm-hmm,
or
mm-hmm.
support worker,
Yep.
because it does feel like there's tools. There's actual tools.
Yeah.
Some
Yeah.
of them could be physical, but
Uh-huh.
with your daughter in particular that you're talking about, it
Mm-hmm.
starts with the actual learning. It's the King of Swords is the answer again. So it's
Right.
learning these tools of how to respond with a therapeutic process so that you can self-regulate and that you can actually make this not just something you got to hurry up and get rid of, but something that actually heals your whole life and transforms your identity and brings out the best version of you. So it's not, these things didn't happen like, I mean, they've been a tremendous grief and suffering for all of us in different ways, but they actually are the key to us going deep into these places that was scheduled. We would have created something else if it wasn't that. So yeah, I do feel like online resources, some
Okay.
training.
Okay.
Oh yeah, look at that. Ace of Swords and the Magician and the King of Swords, all it's educational based. So, in
Right.
fact, your daughter might end up getting so interested in this that she chooses to do this. Yeah,
I love
there's
it. Yeah, that's great. What about The Body Keeps the Score? I've been listening to that audiobook. It's been amazing.
great, great,
Yeah.
great. And
Wow.
we're on the tip of the iceberg. There isn't a wrong way to go. It's the guides are saying, all of you listening, go wherever you're curious.
Right.
If somebody drops a little, hint, a little clue, like you're talking
Mhm.
with people and they say, oh, I had the experience, like you're talking about the book that you just read.
Yeah.
I'm talking about, Thomas Hübel's work. And when you just tip off and check that out, you're probably going to notice that next thing you know, all your algorithms, not just your, digital algorithms, but your spiritual algorithms, everything starts lining up and you're getting
Mm-hmm.
told, go this way, turn left, turn right. And
Amazing. Yes. Follow the breadcrumbs sort of thing. And I was going to
hmm
say, like, I went and did EMDR, and my daughter went in. She said, "You're so young. We're just going to tap." And they tap. It changed. She's like 80% of it's gone. 80% of all of that was gone. And so it was like it totally changed everything for her. So it's a matter of,
So EMDR, emotion code release. I mean, I feel like if all
yeah.
of you comment in and put what you've tapped into and are working with, it's almost like there's no wrong way to go about this. And you just
Mhm.
follow your own curiosity. Yeah,
And
I want to be able
I
to
had a
just,
woman come in and do a session, and she had all this pain and couldn't feel joy. And by the time she saw the light that she was in such misery in, and she could see it, and then she healed it, everything just lifted off her and it was gone. It
yeah.
just lifted, it physically lifted. It was like
And,
something was
and
there,
it,
it couldn't leave, you know?
it can physically lift and then it can come back again. Like
Hmm.
we have this idea that we have to like fix it, fix
Get
it,
her
fix
done,
it.
yep.
And what I heard, so I'm starting to gather all my little quotes, but I heard flex
Okay.
instead of fix
Oh, yeah.
and resolve instead of dissolve. So we want to
Oh,
fix and we want
yep.
to dissolve things. We want them
Hmm.
gone. But if we resolve to integrate as it emerges, because things may come in cycles, they may come back around. And if you set yourself up that, like, okay, I'm going to do all this work and it better be done or
Uh-huh.
else,
Hmm.
you know,
Hmm. I have to admit, I'm like, man, I dealt with this. I'm not doing this again. And you're like, well, apparently I am.
and it's not a punishment and it's not if we get caught in like telling ourselves you must be doing it wrong,
Yeah,
everyone else has it right, you're bad, and
yes. And
or
you get
you're
this
being
shame
punished.
program,
Shame
right? You're
program.
like, yeah, yeah.
And if you work with a good therapeutic counselor or healer, they'll tell you this is not, we don't ever get to be done, 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 because these things are patterned in as part of our healing and our evolution, our learning, and so if we tell them to go away, they're just going to knock louder. So if we can embrace them and say, "Oh, there you are, old friend, PTSD, whatever form of autoimmune condition or you name it, addictive patterns,
Yeah.
psychological patterns." It's like if we can, instead of just, banishing them, because they're here to give us a growth process. They're here as part of an evolutionary process. If we can integrate that and get less like triggered and less
Hmm.
controlled by it.
I love it. Yes, I love that. it's the breath between your reaction and just being able to do something different. It
Hmm.
frames in your thought, all of it, you know. Do you
Um,
want to go to the next question?
yeah, I want to go to a state of bliss about the
Okay.
housing market. Can we go there?
Okay, we can do that. Yeah, and then just before that, I just want to say Emma just said she wanted to know about the old world around the new moon. Will something be dying from our old world around the new moon? But then
Okay.
definitely, then it says the housing market.
Okay.
It's so extreme, and there are many people displaced. Oh my gosh, seems like everywhere. It's so insane. Is there a
Mm-hmm.
plan in place? A correction coming to the market soon? I can't do this nomad life any longer.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's see what
Oh,
we want to know about the housing
okay,
market.
okay.
Uh, wow, there's the Nomad card.
Sure enough,
Sorry,
moving
Henny.
around, eh?
Let's look how empowered that could be, because I
Okay.
hear you.
Yeah,
Okay, so we're looking at, in a way, a transitional phase, goes back about 40 years. The last decade has been really strange. I mean, we're
right,
almost getting up to the year, yeah, we're almost getting up to 20 years post the big crash in 2007.
right.
So there's basically, we've had this cycle of inflation that's, I always say to people, like, okay, it's really interesting to me that you could be so devastated by the destruction and the disturbance of being priced out of the market and, like, struggling to find affordable housing. And yet those same people, a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them would happily buy a house and then sell it 3 years later for twice the price. That game, and a lot of people have gotten rich on that game, and that game can only go, it's kind of like you're feeding on the future depletion. It's like it's creating value out of nothing. Nothing has really changed. The rest of our economy didn't inflate. Our wages didn't double in
God,
price.
me.
So
Yeah.
this is a game, and it's almost like I want to say, at some point, who didn't pull the ethical button and say, I'm not charging, like, I'm not
Fuck
making three
me.
hundred
Yes.
thousand dollars on a house that I spent 300,000 on. I'm not walking away.
And your landlord didn't have to raise the rent like everybody else when you know people can't afford it. Like,
Yeah, so like
mhm.
individuals have gone along, wee-haw, right?
Yeah,
And
right. Yeah,
now
but
everybody's like,
seriously.
what? And I remember years ago going, like, I don't think I could. I never sold a house and made a bunch of money. I don't think I could do it. I think I'd be physically sick doing that. I'd be like,
Yep.
this is just, where's this going to come from? Where it's
And if
just like
you
out of
gain,
thin
if
air,
you
money is
gain
just
from
appearing.
someone, right, and if you gain from someone else's loss, that somehow has to come back to you.
It comes back to all of us.
Yeah, everything gets
So
measured for
we've
y'all. What
all
do you have?
played along with the
Um,
greedy, give it to me, give it to me. I mean,
right.
many of my friends have done it. I'm not judging people. I'm just
Yeah,
saying,
right.
now I know
Right.
why I chose to live on the periphery of all that all these
Uh-huh.
years,
Yep.
because it's like, it's just somehow there's a weird, it's karmic is going to come, karma is going to come around. So, like,
Yikes.
the beautiful thing about the where we're at is that it's hard. I agree. The nomadic life is hard, and I've lived it my whole life, so, or my whole adult life. I get it. But it's harder because we're living the nomadic life inside a false system that's all inflated and stuffed up. It's sort of like, starving when everyone around you is gluttonously stuffing their faces.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
going to feel different
Yeah.
when everybody has to make really big choices. And the whole system is about, let's shuffle around, let's learn to share, let's look at resources differently, let's think outside the box. So nomads are actually going to be at the front of that pack when this shifts. And you're probably going to start to feel pretty proud of being a nomad and being a flexible
Amazing.
person and
Wow.
having that internal resource to be able to spin on a dime and go, oh,
Yep.
and then people are actually probably going to, yeah, like, if you see it as being a weakness, it will continue to feel more and more like that. If you see that as being a strength, it's an opportunity to take that perspective and help correct what got really out of balance. Because it has to correct. It can't just go on like this. It's
So he's
based on
asking how much
greed.
longer?
It's based on exploitation and greed.
Right. And nothing good can come out of that. Like, and even in a project, if someone's out of their integrity, I remember in the Casey readings, it was like someone was out of their integrity, and that completely skewed the whole thing.
Hmm.
We can't, and it's almost like I always look at it like the world was upside down and now it's righting itself. So
Hmm.
right? And so it's slowly but surely going to shake all of that out. So do you know how much longer do we have? Like, we have times. Like, I know time
Well,
is weird, but
I know. So 5 weeks, 5 months.
okay. Yep.
I think it's going to get worse before it gets better.
Okay.
And we are, I want to just keep coming back to, because I hear this, like it's absolutely terrifying. We're all in this together. Like I'm
Oh my
scared too. We're all
gosh.
scared. So I'm
Yeah.
not trying to make light of how serious this is and
Mhm,
how
mhm.
disturbing it is to be roaming around trying to find security in a home base.
Oh my gosh.
I feel like there's something about really like coming into your frequency around each of us has chosen the approach. It's kind of like they're showing me like a big airport on our flight paths to land into the new world, into the new paradigm. They were we pre-chose those. We scheduled the
Ah,
flight and we scheduled the flight path. And so, my dear friend, you and we come in on that that runway,
yeah.
the gypsy runway. And
I love
I
it.
know I
That's
have
so
fought it too, but
awesome.
we are like and the more you can say, hey, wait a minute, that's my runway. This is how I access. And I heard earlier this week in some of the trauma healing work I was doing, it sucks about 30 to 50% of our creative energy, our spiritual energy, our ability to imagine, create new opportunities. That gets sucked by telling the story that what we have is really bad, that what's in front of us is terrible, that we've made mistakes and we're to blame, or that, we're victims of a failed system. The more we spend lamenting in that, that sucks that life energy right out. So what
Right.
the your guides are saying, because this is a very powerful card, the Destiny card, the Traveler.
Oh,
What about this can you actually own and really go like, yeah, there's wisdom in why I chose this, and
right.
I have agency and I'm well informed because I have this. And then you can start to navigate differently. I mean, I love two of the people that I follow. One is called Nomad Capitalist. So that's
Yeah.
a great site
You
where he
got me
talks
onto
about,
him.
yeah, he talks about like, having homes in different parts of the world, or at
Yeah.
least
Bank
starting
accounts
by
here because this is,
traveling and expanding into
yeah.
where you can be and you see more options because I've done readings and supported people who are so I want to say they're so like because they've created so much security for themselves and they
Hmm.
have all this stuff and homes and mortgages and things and it's almost like they really have a hard time even imagining moving up the street or like moving into a rental for a couple of months and putting their stuff in storage so that they can buy a better property down the road. Like
You get
they're
caught in the box
oh,
and
you
you
get
can't evolve
so
there. I think that's the other thing. It's like a comfort, but then at the
mhm.
same time it just holds you in a pattern. You can't get out of that pattern.
And the thing is, they're saying don't stop at the security of a home. We want it all. We want it all. We want family, community. We want a
Hmm.
lifestyle that's filled with joy and meaning. So if they give your guides are saying if they give you a home and
Hmm.
security that's compromised, you'll settle for that.
Isn't that interesting?
So
With
you're
the idea that it's safe. but you might be in a job that's unhealthy. You might be in a relationship that's
Hmm.
unhealthy. You might know you may be
Yeah.
stuck in a kind of a rut that's unhealthy, but it's comfortable. So you're going to get stuck there. But you're already out. You're already out because you're like, this way, you're open. And so nothing's holding you back. And in a way, you've already made a big step.
Yeah. And it is scary because those of us that are nomadic, we live a lot closer to that edge of possibly not having something. But
Yeah.
that's actually a really beautiful thing to come into, I want to say, like a more divine wisdom connection with that because it's probably more about feeling like you're in comparison to other people around you. And like, for example, if you were living, so that's one of the reasons I suggest go to check out the Nomad Capitalist site and also
Mhm.
Digital Nomad site.
Oh,
Like,
okay. Yeah,
if you
right.
are living and surrounded by a lot of people who are rocking that life and loving it and like being fully empowered in it and
Yeah.
sharing their amazing stories and experiences, you probably start to be like, hey, actually, this is kind of cool. I like it, you know?
Yeah.
And
And
your
you come back
home,
and tell your stories, and everyone else who's been doing the same thing is telling the same stories
yeah,
10 years later
yeah,
in a way. And not, so like, I think there's a big opportunity for expansion because you're seeing new things and possibilities. So that's
yeah.
super cool. All right, where did you want to
So,
go? It's
state of
okay. I just
bliss,
want to say, like,
blessings to you.
sure, yeah. So Laura says, Gail Lucy said that there's more than one truth. And I like that actually.
Mm.
I like that, right? Just not getting stuck to kind of,
Well, let's put it this way. Truth is like it's like the rainbow spectrum. It's colorful.
okay.
It's
Uh,
all varieties of information and it's a little bit it it changes. It morphs. It's not like the closest I can come to what they're sharing with me is years ago reading, I can't even remember which one of the Palladian channel things it was, but it was basically talking about how the Palladians were saying, oh, well, this is the version of truth that we're giving you right now because
right.
you wouldn't be able to even comprehend, much less integrate or understand the
And we
actual.
got to be able to palliate it too. We only can handle so
Yeah,
much. You
that's
can't eat all
right.
your meals in one day, right? Like that.
Yeah.
There's
So
no,
it's
right?
like, and this is where we get into what I do, where people go, oh, yeah, but you said like 3 years ago, blah, 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 and it didn't happen in that timeline, or it didn't happen the way
Right.
you said, or, and it's like again, it's very, very challenging if you stay in the sort of stuck place of there's only one way to grow, there's only one path, there's only one, this is the right choice, that's the wrong choice.
Right.
These awarenesses, these truths that we're uncovering, it's beautiful. It's like this, there's that beautiful rainbow of possibilities, expansion into a
Mhm.
greater version of ourselves, which continues to expand. It's a little bit, the guides are saying it's a little bit like saying, how do you feel if a scientist tells you we've cataloged and categorized every single living species on the planet? There's nothing new to discover. How does that make you feel?
Right.
Like,
That
how do
is
you feel about that?
right.
It's like, I would say,
Right.
no,
Okay.
that's not my planet. That's not possible
Uh-huh.
because those species are evolving all the time and we just don't know. I just believe that new things can suddenly appear. Like,
Well, and if it was all just given to us, we'd just lay down. There'd be no incentive to grow or evolve. If we come here to evolve,
yeah,
then what would be the
and
point?
truths are kind of like planetary species.
Uh-huh.
Things are coming into their like heyday and it's their time to flourish and then they might go extinct, but they actually might come back. We have a lot of extinct creatures that are now returning out of the blue. Like, how did they come back? Were their eggs buried down in a tunnel or something? Or,
Right.
right? It's like, so it's creation is so much more magnificent than this black and white truth, good, bad, right, wrong. It's true or it's not true. It's like,
Yeah.
and so if we see, wow, I just learned the taxonomy or whatever you say that of the names of all these plants or their medicinal qualities of all these plants, and I just learned 10,000 of them. and then now there's a new 20,000 that have just been discovered, right? It's like, but does that make you upset as a, you know,
Right.
as a biologist or whatever? No, it's
It's
like
exciting.
it's exciting
It's
because
exciting.
you start to see, oh, well, but these things have this in common and these things have this in common. And I wonder what the next species is going to have that those ones don't. And so if you
That's
can
amazing.
stay in that place
Yeah.
about like, this is flourishing evolution. We are onto something here. We have more information than we've ever had before, and the way you navigate is to go for the stuff that you are so curious about. You have to stay up all night
That's
and make your
exciting
eyes
for
sore,
you.
and
Yeah,
then you
it's
and then you're
exciting for
like,
you.
okay, I'm gonna go tell these people about this, and I want to have a conversation about this, and it's made me think I'm not going to do that anymore. Like, if it changes your life, how you
Yeah.
talk to people, how you think about reality, and it
Yeah.
makes it feel more special, more meaningful, more empowering, head that way. Do it.
Yeah. That makes so much sense. How do you navigate all this information? Well, does it excite you? Does it help you on your journey? Does it help push you forward? Does it, yeah,
And
what does it do? That makes that's a like, and feeling into it, like you said in the beginning. So
mhm.
that makes tons of sense to me. Instead of getting like just stuck to it and or it upsetting you, well then it's like, well, are we addicted to getting upset? You know what I mean? It's
Well,
like,
that's part of the
no.
trauma healing work, right? And again,
Yes,
they're saying don't call it work. Ooh, no more trauma healing work. Trauma healing,
trauma healing. I got it. Yeah.
trauma healing blessings, opportunities, growth, I guess we
Yeah,
could call it.
that's a good
Yeah.
way. Okay, so there's just a bunch of things, a few things about the housing market here. We
Yep.
all deserve a home to land in.
Yes.
You're part of a market. It's like, yeah, and then you get into ownership. Why are we owning anything? And like, it's
Yep.
like, that's interesting, right?
And,
Right. And then it says, regarding the house, is the worst within the next 5 months, worst of the housing market. So, yeah,
okay.
from the
So
housing.
again, I keep getting things are being delayed, purposefully delayed. Why are they being delayed? Okay. So they're being delayed because we're supposed to really go ask the deeper questions.
Yeah, we'll be learning. I see.
Yeah, it's about spiritual integrity. So, you know,
Wow.
okay, let's just say that was pretty radical, that thing I said earlier, right? About like the greed and the like I feel kind of a little bit shy and embarrassed even to say that. Like, it's who am I to say, right? I'm sorry if I may have offended any of you. I do not mean to do that. I'm just speaking naturally about the reality of systems, right?
We've been in competition with each other in a capitalistic either get
Totally.
win or lose instead of win-win and cooperation.
Yeah.
And
So,
so without
and
coming into cooperation,
and honestly, I don't even know when that completely turned around for me. I make it sound like I've always been this way. I certainly have chosen for some reason to sit more on the sidelines
but
in this lifetime and observe it all. And I'm kind of grateful now that I have. I feel like there's been less karma that I've incurred from doing that.
yeah.
However, if
Mhm.
I would have had the opportunity, I would have jumped on that bandwagon. Like, it's just my soul made different choices for me, but I would have
Yep,
been right in there with the rest of you. So I'm not judging
yep,
anybody.
yep.
I'm just saying that when this becomes the main conversation, when all the channels and all the people and everybody, even the mainstream, are talking about that phenomena, like, this system is wrong. Like, the
Right,
system, like,
right.
we
Yeah,
can't prop this
absolutely.
up and
Yeah.
fix it or try to just skedaddle sideways into something a little less damaging. We gotta
Right.
like the everything. The house of cards has to come down so that
It
we
can't sustain. The old ways can't sustain. But okay, so here's Cass is asking, what will happen to people stuck with high mortgages and interest rates? And then I've heard too that it's like we're going to be getting all the interest we paid back. So
Yep, yep. So we will. Okay, so what I'm getting is there's going to be as many different ways to navigate into the future as there have been in the past.
okay, yeah,
And we're going to see lots of incentives, lots of programs, lots of different ways. So let's just say again, like a full spectrum of the, on the one side, we know what that side's all about, the dark side. It's, here, let us get you onto digital currencies and a social credit program and put you into smart cities and limit your life, right?
Right.
And control at your every move. That's one. And then you go all the way from that to people that are totally going off grid, unplugging from the system and working collectively and communally. And that has its own huge challenges. Like that's pretty
Right.
extreme as well, right? And
Right.
then there's going to be every spectrum in between those two extremes of, people setting up really new sort of old paradigm, sort of new paradigm,
Yeah,
transitional
right.
stuff,
Kind of
transitional
integrating
currencies.
maybe.
Yeah.
Right?
So, and housing is going to be one of those areas where, like, I always say to people, like, okay, so the market collapses, what? How, like, what? People are just going to all be like living outside on their front lawns outside of their homes. Like,
Right.
if everybody's mortgage goes and everybody's stuff goes, like, who is going to enforce? Right? Who's going to be the one that goes, whatever they call them, like the bailiffs are the ones that go in and like to possess your house if their house is also like it, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Who
Yeah.
are these people that are going to be pulling everybody out of their houses? So it's, you know, the what's going to happen, the best case scenario is that we slowly get unplugging. And in order to unplug, you got to get good with that system is going. So, we got to make decisions gradually about how much we're putting into that system. And as we unplug,
Mhm.
we are looking at a whole variety of different options to get creative of being outside of the system, but it's not going to be simple. It's not going to be they're going to fix everything and we're going to get all this stuff back and we're going to be not, there won't be a blip in the radar. It'll be like zoop and that's it. Like, I feel like this whole thing will transform and there will be lots of transitional support for it, but we've got to be willing to let go of that system. And so when that's the main conversation, when everyone is talking about that, when everyone is talking about we refuse to get back into a system of that, but we also refuse to go into socialism and communism.
Right. Right.
So, but there is a third path. There's a lot of third paths.
Yes. Yes. So, it's interesting.
Contributionism,
Mhm.
the gifting
Mhm.
economies, like the one small town movement, like there's so many versions of transitional economic currencies but it's going to look really different. It's going to look really different. So,
That's amazing. Well, we're gonna have to get creative. It's like,
yeah.
yeah, what's the mother of necessity or whatever? Like, what's that saying? But we'll have to get creative, so we will.
And
We
and the
will.
beautiful thing, because I just want to quickly pull a card on the food, less physical food as we
Oh yeah,
ascend
yeah, yeah,
spiritually.
sure. Well, that's right. Yeah.
Um, the beautiful thing is that I can tell that I'm out of my alignment when I start going into, oh no, I'm not, it's happening too fast and I'm going to get stuck. I'm going to be living out on the street. I'm going to have nothing. When I go into that mindset, I
Yes.
know that I've been watching too much and, you know, I'm like, okay, like, I,
Doomsday or it's gonna stay. Yeah, stay
well,
away from
it's
the
not that.
doomsday.
So where do you go to be not in that, but not in absolute denial and
Yep.
everything's fine?
Yep. Agreed. Yep.
So
It's
it's
still
that
happening.
middle ground, and
Mm-hmm.
how do we cultivate larger space in that middle ground?
Right.
And the belief, the faith that we have. This is why people keep saying, "Oh, when's it going to happen? When's it going?" I'm like, don't rush it.
Well, and there's
The
so many things
longer this
with
can take, the better.
divine timing too, right?
Yeah, and if we
Right.
don't want it to rush a crash, I've never seen a full crash, and we don't want to rush the everything to crash down. What
Right.
we want to insist on is that within 5 years, let's say, oh yeah, look at that, five jumped out, and then there's the 10. So within 5 years, there's there is that we've gone beyond that point of no return. We're not going to go back to a system of greed
Right. Right.
and, a negative karma situation. And then within 10 years, we're going to be beautifully, the majority of listeners here are going to be beautifully transitioned
That's
into all
nice.
kinds of different,
No.
transitional currencies and different models of sharing and abundance and resources and resource management and new creative options. And there's 10 years to get all that happening. And you're all going to be on that wave of doing it that way. There, so it's sort of like, what little steps can you do this year? What little steps
Yeah.
can you do in the next 3 to 5 in the way you're planning things? It's like,
In the planning and also in our own
mm-hmm,
internal work and the trauma work, we've got lots to do in the time to
mm-hmm,
get there, you know?
definitely. Okay,
So
so
Jordan always saying dark chocolate is healing for me.
yes,
I
I
hear
love
that.
it.
I love
Oh,
it.
well, so we're talking about chocolate. Let's quickly just weigh in, pardon the pun, on food
Yeah, the
overall.
food. Thank you for remembering that. Yeah, if you don't
Hmm.
mind. Yeah, we're going to be eating less. So I was going to say, like, so Dolores Cannon would say, in the
Hmm.
time as we're becoming more light bodies, we'll be living on fruit and smoothies and not needing as much. But I personally have still a very healthy appetite.
Yeah,
It's
so okay,
less
so
meat, I understand, but I still personally eat meat, but less. I don't know.
okay, this is really interesting because it's again, um, we want to go slow and we want to inform ourselves. We want to learn a lot about, there's a lot going, we're going to learn a lot about health and nutrition, new ways of looking at those things. We're going to learn a lot about these modern illnesses and diseases, like, all the different autoimmune conditions, all the different mental health conditions, all the different, and the cancers, and the on and on and on. Like,
Mhm.
so there's going to be, and our relationship with food and how we eat and why we eat and what we eat and where it comes from and how it's created and produced. These are going to be
Aha.
very, very big topics. I don't see that happening in the next, like, complete transition away from eating food in the next 30 or 40 years, because it feels like we need to go deeper in to the actual questions around food, just like we need to go deeper into the questions around, the economy and the system.
Right.
So we're
And I think
going,
everybody's different too, like what
and
their needs are.
everybody's
I've
different.
been told there's been people who were like, I've had sessions where they're like, don't eat any more meat, but they were telling me you can still eat meat. That's different for your body. And it's like, but these animals have a soul. And so remember to be conscious of that. And so it's not like everybody should be doing this. It's not that at all. I don't think so. It's going in and finding out what you need to get there.
Well, and I feel like as we do the spiritual work and the emotional healing work, we're going to need it for different reasons. And
Oh,
it, like, what I'm getting is
yeah.
that there will be a kind of need around supporting our bodies as they go through these great transitions of adjusting to all the frequency upgrades to all. So there will be different needs. And what I'm getting, they're showing me sort of like almost as if you would tune in day to day, hour to hour, and learn more about how to work with your body and learn more about what it needs. And, I feel
Mhm.
like probably some of the best time for me eating in my life was when I was living in a community where there was really high vibrational, good quality food available from local
Mhm.
producers. And
Mhm.
I was having a very happy life as well and spending a lot of time out in nature and feeling pretty fulfilled in a lot of ways. And I used to just go into the grocery store and I would literally shop by, I remember, I think it was, oh gosh, was it one of Louise Hay's books or someone else? I can't remember her name. But anyway, talking about how you could listen to the frequency of food. So I would go shopping and I would literally focus on what was kind of humming or
Yeah.
like singing to me. And I still do that a little bit. I definitely feel that the
Yep.
overall frequency of a lot of the food in most of the grocery stores has gone so down in the last decade, in the last 5 years.
Oh my gosh, honestly. Yep. And that's
Yeah.
another thing equal to the housing market. How can these stores really, like, I went in and talked to the security guard at my local store, and I said, let's talk about who's actually robbing who here. And I said, I feel like the companies are robbing us more than we're robbing you. And he said, oh, I couldn't agree more. He said,
Yeah, and
"Ah,
then we also get into this weird thing about like I went into the natural health food store here and around Thanksgiving and the turkey was like $120 for a turkey.
right. Yeah.
However, I
Yeah.
was like, actually that is probably more accurate in terms of that is a life.
Yes, and then you got to look at why is that hamburger only $1 should be the bigger question than why. Yeah, when you sustain that life properly, ethically, and
So
the amount
and then
of
we're
like,
yeah, so we're like
yeah,
these questions, I know I'm forcing everybody to really like look inward at
mhm,
what, we can look at what we see out there, but if we can allow ourselves to open up and trust that these compromises, these compressions coming from outside are not there to hurt us and punish us. They're there to like kind of
I agree.
squeeze us
Yep,
into like, oh, maybe a channel or a way of a new approach. And
yep.
then from there, we things will open up
It's
as
all
we,
happening for
yeah.
us. It's all happening for us. If we didn't get pushed, we wouldn't be doing this. If we didn't get pushed,
Unfortunately,
we'd still be in the
it's kind of
fucking.
embarrassing, isn't it?
Yes, like one of the human
I've
beings that we're like,
I've
really?
had
It's like, yeah,
uh,
it's like I don't need to be pushed anymore. I got it. I got it.
yeah, yeah. I've had
Yeah.
those
Like, yeah,
conversations with my guys over the years where
yep,
I'm like, oh, if we just do this, I promise. And then I hear them going, yeah, that's what you said last time.
yeah. They're like, really? Yeah.
And I'm
You
like,
need the
yeah, you're
2.4. When
right.
after the 2.4, the truck's coming. So you're like, no, right? But we forget so quickly. It's like
It's
leaving a bad relationship. It's like you may as well slap me really hard across the face. I am
oh
getting
my
it. Like,
God.
wow, is this so hard? But I want to say quickly. I was in El Salvador, and there was a family that they bring out their old wooden boat onto into the waves, and then they come back, and they had this fish that was massive. It was so huge, all these little fish and a Monterey, and but they all went together. Like it was like the little boy put down all the kind of the grass so the boat would stay, and then the whole family's there, and then they all eat together. Pineapples are from the trees, and the food is all, and they literally catch, and then they either sell it at the market or they all eat together, and all the food was like literally from that tree to your table. It's crazy. And you just think, we're not, so in Canada, I mean, I don't know about you, but we're not allowed to fish. You get fish anywhere. You
You have
can't.
to have a license.
You're
Yeah.
And even then you're not, it says catch and release. A lot of places are put it back. You cannot
Hmm.
be self-sustaining, and they're yeah. So it was so beautiful to see. It was like, what are we doing here that we can't actually
Hmm. Hmm.
sustain?
Hmm.
Like it's insane. And they might not have a lot. They might have nothing, but they can live on a hut on a beach. And it's like, man, you got to wonder who's richer.
Yeah, well, miles to go. And I look forward to our next week. I'm going to put that link for Thomas Hubel's website. I know his stuff on there is a little bit pricey, like to join the membership for his
Okay.
monthly thing. But you can find stuff about him and some of his stuff online and yeah, like on YouTube and stuff for free. So
Yep. The body keeps the score. That's another good one. There's lots of these,
beautiful.
right? So we'll just keep on keeping on, all of us.
Blessings to you all. Have a great week, everybody. We'll
Blessings.
see you here again next Wednesday. Bye for now.